Album Concept Hour. The Album Concept Hour. It's the Album Concept Hour. Welcome everybody to the Album Concept Hour. My name is Brad LeBaron. I am your host as always. And we have virtual John here. What's going on, John?
Oh, I was just chilling, hanging out, man. My day off, so
we're
just woke up.
If you couldn't tell, we're doing this a little earlier than usual. Normally we're doing this very, very late.
Getting us in the AM today.
But there's a very important reason we're doing it this early. We got a chance to get on one of the regular podcasters that I listen to. He's from the MCU cast and the Stranded Panda universe, and his name is Matthew Carroll. What's going on, Matt?
What's happening, Brad? Thanks for having me on, man.
Dude, thanks for being here. I've been listening to your podcast, the MCU. Is it called the MCU cast? Is that the proper name?
Well, yeah, the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast is the name of the podcast, but yeah, it's the whole thing. But you can find it at like mcucast.com. MCUcast is kind of our shorthand or whatever, you know. Tag.
Are you guys associated with the overlords?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We are lucky we haven't been sued yet. Probably. We started out as a very small podcast, just called ourselves the Marvel Cinematic Universe Podcast because we're just talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's sort of just like,
Well, I mean,
it's kind of grew. It's a mouthful too.
MCU podcast definitely is.
Well, and I bet you they've been letting you do your thing, because sometimes you get really, really on the money with your predictions here and there, and who knows? They might be like listening to you guys for like feedback, real-time feedback about this stuff, you know.
Oh, we joke about that sometimes when we get a prediction right. We're like, they were listening, they stole our idea, but it's definitely not true. They got their own stuff going on, but
but they still could be listening. Somebody's always listening.
Sure, yeah. I think they probably listen to the fans in general just to like, keep up with what everybody's saying, keep up with the response to certain things. You know, they clearly listen to the fans because when things don't work, they don't continue doing them.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's probably like a handful of people's full-time job to go both listen to podcasts about it, go on forums, like
I bet you're right.
Gather the data.
I like that job. Can I have that job?
Dude, right? I know. Are they hiring? Like,
I bet, and it's Disney. I bet they have insurance. Damn good insurance.
I hope so. With all that moolah they're raking in. But yeah, no, I really enjoy listening to you guys talk about the MCU. As Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is where you guys kind of started, and you kind of moved on from there. But that
was the thing. When Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came out, we were like, we had been talking about kind of starting a podcast because I love the sort of big connected universes. Yeah. And then when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came out, I was like, hey, there's enough to talk about. Like, there's something coming out every week. Yeah. So there's like enough to do a podcast about it. And then we didn't know that 6 years later, there'd be like a 2-year gap of content because of COVID. And so for 2 years, we've been like, what are we talking about this week? Oh, the same universe that has not changed in 2 years? Sure, let's do that some more.
Right.
But honestly, it's been wonderful. We have a really tight community that like writes in a lot of cool feedback, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, that's a feature of your show I really enjoy, the feedback feature. I mean, you know, it's just people sending in emails and your responses on Facebook and what have you. But it really helps like center the podcast with the fans.
Thanks, man. And thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me bring an album that like is not going to get you any extra views at all. I really appreciate that.
Oh, dude, we have to support the indie music as well, man.
Man. We tried it. If you look at our collection of what we got, we try to get all over the board. That's our.
Oh yeah. I was just teasing.
Everything.
I know as a podcaster, sometimes I'm looking and going like, what can we talk about? You know, we talk about what we love, but then also like, you know, you gotta name an episode, something that'll catch the ear or catch the eye. This is one that I fell in love with this album. Absolutely fell in love with this album.
Yeah.
And then I went to see the band because I fell in love with it. And there were only like 10 people at the show, and I think I was the only one who knew the band. They were just like venue kids who come to every show, you know? I was like the only person there who knew this band, and I was like, what the hell? And so like a few years later, I go back to see him again.
Real downer.
It really was. It's like this music that I love so much, and apparently no one else loves it.
You know, I was gonna say, like, the last episode of the podcast we had on this band, Inspector 34, and they are, you know, a pretty like kind of indie you know, group. You know, they got like, you know, a couple, you know, hundreds of views on their music video that they just dropped. But they're friggin' fantastic, and I want everyone to know about them like immediately.
Right.
So I'm like, why is this only at this many views? Everyone should be sharing it with everyone they know. But yeah, when you catch on to something that you love like that, it's just like, yeah, it's immediate, you know?
Yeah, it's just way too the world has way too much content in it nowadays, and it's really hard to filter through everything. And then everything is marketing. It's like if it doesn't fall through the mark, people like you might dig for something you love, but most people are just listening to what's in their life. And these days, there's not really radio. And Spotify, you choose what you listen to most of the time. So if you're not intentional about your music discovery, you will just take what the universe gives you. And that is not the best way to find the music you are going to love the most, you know?
Yeah. It's not quite how we did things. Because, you know, back when we were, you know, back in our day, you know, we had iPods and like we had to like, you know, CDRs. We had to trade with our friends, and it was it was really hard to sometimes get access to even listen to the music that you liked. So to be able to just have it at your fingertips at a moment's notice is such a big thing. But yeah, it does have that other aspect of like, if you're not intentional with it, then you're just gonna find whatever is advertised to you through your, you know, search history, whatever.
Yeah. And so then it becomes a world where marketers are deciding what music we listen to, and that's not great. It's not great. It's hard to break through, you know.
What was that, John?
You know, it's kind of like we were the last. The '90s kids were like the last of the album kids
that actually bought the CDs.
Because once, like, especially iTunes and Apple took that over, we really went back to singles again.
Yeah,
it's absolutely not about selling a whole album anymore. It's about trying to get 1 million people to buy one song.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's actually a much easier tactic.
Well, it is. I think it is, and it isn't, though. You know, like it's easier in the sense that, like, yes, it's just one song, but then, like, you know, one of the things that, you know, so one of my hip hop guys is always talking about is like he doesn't like the fact that they do one song every like maybe 6 months or something, rather than like just keep on pumping out, you know, material to like hone your skill or whatever. So it's kind of a different approach. You know, you're spending all of your energy on the one thing that you want to, you know, everyone to hear, rather than like a bigger thing that maybe not as many people will hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about like John said, how they sell it. And iTunes came in with the singles, but back in the day, you had to especially with streaming. Back in the day, you had to invest money to hear an album.
Yeah.
Like you had to spend your $20 so that you could listen to the album the first time.
Yeah.
And you think about how crazy that is, and the amount of money artists make now, and the amount of money you have to invest. So you pay your $10 a month to have Spotify, and you can go listen to any album in the world. And if you don't like it, you're done with it and you never listen to it again. That artist made like 3 pennies off of your listen, and you invested nothing.
And
there's just no investment.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you hear a lot of in commercials. You're hearing a lot of like modern and past rock songs and pop songs.
Yeah.
Because that's where they're making their money. They have to sell to these big companies because it's just like you said, we're paying pennies on the dollar for this music.
Yeah. Well, but also weirdly, those people who have an established career back in the day, those people would have sold their music. Let's say like Backstreet Boys, right?
Yeah.
Backstreet Boys sold all their music in the 90s, and they would have never made another, like maybe they would have put out an edition every once in a while or whatever, and the super fans would have bought it still.
Yeah.
But like they would be making no money off of people listening to their music, like pulling their old CDs out of their cases and listening to their CDs. But Backstreet Boys is now making making millions of dollars a year off of streaming because people still go and listen to like whatever. I don't even know a Backstreet Boys song, but like
back.
I want it that
Backstreet's
way.
back. I want thank you guys for.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys are big super fans.
John knows. I know John the one.
Millennium. It's a good album.
Yeah. I have no hard feelings toward the Backstreet Boys. I was just trying to pick a big artist that sort of would fade away by now.
Yeah, that was like the kind of peak of like pop, the pop monster as we call it in this podcast. You know, like when pop music was really, really king and just rake. Like you still go to thrift shops and you will find a Backstreet Boys CD, a NSYNC CD, a Britney Spears CD. Like
Christina
they printed
Aguilera,
so many of those
Genie
albums.
in the Bottle.
Yeah, like you will find so much just 90s pop any thrift store.
That was when the machine could made all the money and paid very specific people.
That's why it's the
before the internet.
Machine. It's like a giant cloud that hangs over.
Well, getting to then what more the 2006 era, where indie started to rise. Well, just to talk about it a little bit, you do music, indie music on your own. You have several projects going, and one thing we like to mention, like a lot these days, like once a podcast, support your local musicians and stuff. So I guess I just wanted to ask you, like, what is it? What are some of the like plights you're kind of going through right now as someone that used to play like shows to make ends meet?
Yeah, now it's weird because it's starting to come back, even though we're at the worst COVID time possible. And even though I don't want to be out there, like I'd much rather be responsible and stay home. The government's no longer providing any extra support for musicians. They did for a few months. And so basically, March hit, and I'm a guy who plays music live. That's what I do. I play cover bands, cover music. Like that's the sort of like that's where I make my money. I make original music too, but I make my money from playing covers and weddings. And March hit, and just everything was canceled. Like
you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. From March till about June or July, actually, I guess even through like August and September, there were just no gigs at all, like nothing in the world. So,
there's no safety net really for musicians when it comes to that.
No, there's nothing. And I was lucky enough that I have the amount of grit in me to like work through the unemployment process because it was not easy because it's not built for musicians. So you had to like prove that you work sometimes, and then you had to prove that you've been working, and it was a whole thing.
Well, and then some people won't even consider music work just because out of a weird principle,
Yep. So you had to prove that to the unemployment administration and stuff. So like just to make it through those few months, like a lot of my musician friends though had to go get like work in a kitchen or something for those couple months, which glad they could find something. Some of them didn't. Some of them just didn't have money for those 3 months and couldn't navigate the difficulty of the unemployment system. So like, it was a rough time for a lot of musicians.
Yeah, and I think that really like the reason people are kind of being forced back into doing it is kind of because like everyone's running out of money. Like we need to, and like I think, like, I mean, not to get too into it, but like, like I'm definitely in a similar spot where it's like, oh, I need like, I mean, peek behind the curtain. That's part of why I've launched the Patreon. I know, or whatever. But you guys
because support.
People need to, we're all trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces and keep going. So. Support each other, people. If someone is in need, whether it's musician or not, just support your friends and family right now in this holiday season.
Support the podcast. What's the Patreon? What's the link?
Oh yeah, Patreon is patreon.com/flyoverstate_park. Thank you.
Flyover State Park. Go give everybody, and he's going to have some content, and you should be giving every week or month or whatever it is.
Yeah. We're gonna figure out some tiers and some stuff to give away. Still figuring out this Patreon business.
Oh, and if you want to support my music, strandedpanda.com, there's a store, and my new album, I have a new double album and a new a t-shirt that just are available for pre-order. So if you want to support some local music, that's or some indie music, I guess.
Well, and we plan on covering your double album when it does come out. The Star Trek, it's a Star Trek themed double album.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Yes, we can definitely work with that.
Yeah, I'm from a Trekkie family, so
Nice.
I'm real excited to cover some of those in detail.
Yeah, I'm pumped about it, man. I took a different episode for each song, and I wrote a song about that episode. It also follows the theme of the new Picard series, and that was actually the crazy thing. I wrote a song a week, so as the episode came out, my goal was 36 hours after the episode dropped to have a song fully produced with a video and post it. And that was intense, and it was super fun. But the songs turned out really fun and cool, and I don't know. I'm excited. It's weird when you do something you know is sort of like, I'm doing this because of the sort of like gimmick of trying to get it done in a time frame, and then you end up being like, oh, whoa, I made a song I really love. That's super fun.
Yeah, well, because sometimes it takes a long time to write a song, but sometimes like the really short songs that you write in like a really small span of time are the better ones. And it's it's
get your intellectual brain out of the way, and your left brain sort of takes over, and you make art. Sometimes you realize, I found myself realizing a year after I read a song, oh, that's what I meant by that. Like there were connections happening in my brain that I didn't realize that analogy works this way, you know?
Yeah, it's just flowing out of you. Yeah, no, I haven't written in a while, but it's some of one of my favorite personal ones I wrote in like just like 10 minutes or something, just because I was really feeling it.
Okay,
we should move on. What's up,
Matt? One more question, and then we have to get into the album.
Let's do it.
As the MCU guy, what is your official pick for one or two albums of the MCU movies? What's your favorite soundtrack?
Oh, I am not the biggest soundtrack guy.
Okay.
And it's like I love them all. I love all the soundtracks. Endgame is probably the one. Endgame and Avengers, those two are probably the ones that I like hear and immediately recognize. And then by far my favorite though. See, I said I'm not the soundtrack guy, but I do have my favorites. I should just answer the question. My favorite by far is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. I mean,
there you have it.
I feel like that's
official MCU stamp.
Yeah.
Of unofficialness. Don't mess with this.
Yeah. I can't wait for the third one, man. Like that's what
me too.
Like I'm almost more excited for the third soundtrack than I am for the movie in a weird way.
Is Thor: Love and Thunder coming out first, or is Guardians 3 coming out first?
Thor: Love and Thunder is coming out first.
Yeah, I believe.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Mostly because
I feel like that means we're going to see the Guardians in Thor: Love and Thunder. Though.
Wait, do we? Yeah, we are going to see the Guardians. Yeah. At least Star-Lord has been announced, but I don't know about the others. Do we curse on this podcast? By the way,
he took
curse
off
as much as you'd like.
Disney fucked up big by letting James. They fired James Gunn for old tweets that were out of context. Like some right wing guys went after James Gunn for his tweets, and they like Disney was like, oh no, we got to fire him, and then they ended up rehiring him for Guardians 3, and. They really fucked up though, because by the time they rehired him, he'd already been hired for Suicide Squad. So he's making Suicide Squad before he makes Guardians. So it's like they basically delayed Guardians by 2 years. But then COVID came along and delayed it by 2 years anyway. So
COVID kind of brought it back in line almost.
I just hope James Gunn does good. He can't screw up the trilogy.
It's gonna be great, I think, for sure.
I think it's gonna be great.
But we would have got it a few years earlier though.
Suicide Squad also looks amazing, by the way. I'm the MCU guy, but like that DC movie looks amazing.
Yeah, I'm curious because I'm still like, I'm an MCU guy, but I also watch pretty much all superhero movies as they come out,
Same.
So yeah.
I still think Green Lantern gets a bad rap. I thought it was better
I haven't actually seen it because of all of the hate train for it. I never actually went and watched it, but
I'm with you, John, actually. I think it gets way more hate than it deserves.
I'm not saying it's a great movie.
No, it's not. It's horrible.
I really don't understand why everybody hates it so much. It didn't, and it kind of. I would have gone to see a sequel.
I would have too. I would have too.
Maybe it's like the time it came out. It was like we were like superhero movies weren't as popular yet. It was really big, and it was a big. It was maybe like a too far in the comic-y direction for that time. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's the opposite. I think it's the Green Lantern came out in 2011, which is like 3 years after Iron Man. And so it's like the MCU was starting to get on its feet. We had like Captain America, I think, is in 2011 as well. And then 2012 is Avengers. So you're getting Captain America, Thor, Hulk, and then you get this Green Lantern. And it's like they are not competing with what Marvel is doing, you know? And even just the fact that it was a standalone movie while Marvel's doing this really cool.
Well, it was supposed to set up. It was supposed to be the one that started the DC cast thing, but then it got panned so bad that DC scrapped all their plans and started over with Superman.
I can't wait for in the newer movies where they're bringing in all of the old movies for them to touch on the Green Lantern movie.
Yeah. Well, have you seen Deadpool 2?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what he goes back in time and shoots himself before he works on Green Lantern.
We're gonna have the DC equivalent of that with Ryan Reynolds, probably, of course. Well,
they're about to do multiverse in DC. They're talking about bringing back Michael Keaton. It would be amazing if they brought back that version of Green Lantern, even if just for a shot.
Honestly, they should. I want DC to do that full bore, like, just in a really just ham-fisted, fun way. I want the MCU to do it differently, but I like that they're having fun with all of their past characters with the DC stuff. Seems interesting. But yeah, we should get into this album, though. We're going to move a little faster than normal, and we're probably going to... We might skip a few tracks. But there's like interludes like 1, 2, and 3 that are
right. Yeah, they're just instrumental. Something can be said about them quickly, but
yeah. So we'll play one of the interludes, one of the ones that you mentioned something about. We'll get into the first track here. This is the Captain's Overture. We play 15-second clips to
yeah.
So here is the Captain's Overture.
And over there, that's Oswald, the one-handed gunner. We call him that because he lost a hand. And over here, this group is the Burgundy Boys. They're a gang from an island off the coast. And then there's
I really enjoy like the way they the first song really sets up the tone for the rest of this album, and I like that they go through all the salesmen on the ship and stuff in a fun way.
Absolutely. Before we even get into like song per song, like the overall theme of the album, I think is important to kind of point out. Like it is basically, it's a completed story. It's a narrative. It's not just a theme like many concept albums, and which is why I brought it. I think it's one of the tightest concept albums.
Yeah, very well so.
It is a story told. It's a love story told between two sort of star-crossed lovers. One is a captain of a sailing ship, and one is a pilot. And it's about them sort of like how they're trying to bring their worlds together. And what they do is they tell one song is from the perspective of the captain, and the next song is from the perspective of Annelies, which is his love interest. And it's just sort of allegorical for the idea of having someone with different passions, with a different purpose in life to some degree as you, but then trying to make your lives work together. And I love it so much. They make these two very interesting protagonists.
It's a very real kind of story. Like it's a very relatable kind of like love story. Like we've probably, a lot of us have had a relationship kind of like this at some point, and it's really, really sweet the way it all like comes together in the beginning, especially
for sure.
Like I was telling you, I forgot that it was called Ribbons of War, and so for the first half, I was just kind of getting lulled into the love story.
Well, absolutely, and you don't know what that war is going to be.
Yeah.
So, like, you get this the first. Not to spoil, if you haven't listened to the album, I highly recommend going to listen to it because we are going to probably spoil it here in a second.
This is spoiler-heavy podcast.
You can't really have the kind of podcast we have and not.
Except for that Grant Summerland episode, he was kind of cagey. He wouldn't answer all of our questions.
Oh, interesting.
But
apparently you gotta go listen to the dang album yourself.
Yeah, apparently.
Did we even mention this is Ribbons of War by the Extraordinaires? I don't know if we said.
We did.
This is Ribbons of War by the Extraordinaires. A great album.
Yes, that
really
is
great
the
album.
This is us in the morning, guys. Just
yes,
you gotta give
this
us
is
a
the
minute.
morning crew.
Some of us haven't had our morning coffee yet.
Yes,
I didn't know if there was an intro that I wasn't on for, or you know what I mean. Like,
we kind of do it by the seat of our pants here and there.
I'm not gonna lie, I can't believe he didn't do a cold open with that one clip from the popular Hall & Oates song later.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
I'd have done a cold open with that.
That one's fun. We definitely got to
know,
talk about that at some point. But
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, this one. But you were saying earlier, like you didn't when you first heard it, you didn't necessarily know that because you heard it back in like 2006 or whenever.
Yeah, I heard it back. Like I wasn't able to look up lyrics online and easily follow it, and so the idea that one song is from his perspective and then the next song is from her perspective. And it kind of took me a while. It took me a listen or two to kind of map out what was going on. And at the end, they do a little bit more trading lines back and forth. And that took me a while to understand and see too. But anyway, the Captain's Overture, this first song, is basically just introducing the characters. And musically, it's very kind of sea shanty. You mentioned Neutral Milk Hotel, I think.
Yeah.
It has a similar like production value of like a Neutral Milk Hotel, that sort of indie rock of the mid 2000s, but the
Mountain Goatsies.
Yes. Every time I play it, the Mountain Goats auto plays on Spotify, which I think is funny.
Of course.
But
we have a friend that's really into them.
Yeah,
I like Mountain Goats a lot.
They're good.
But this album's a lot more pop sensible. It's a lot more traditional harmonies than Neutral Milk Hotel. It is a lot more like the Mountain Goats, I guess.
It's funny though. Sometimes it's straight funny.
Well, yeah. Because Jeff Mangum, like, he's amazing, and his vocals are very characteristic of him, but they're not pop sensible necessarily. He's cracking here and there. He's straining his vocals.
I would say these guys are actually impressive musicians. The band's a little, in this album, in future albums, they get a lot tighter. This album, it's very loose rhythmically. Like you can hear sort of the drums and the guitar will be a little off from each other, but it kind of adds to the charm of the, like we're men on a boat singing the sea shanty sort of vibe.
Yeah. I think that it's definitely a purposeful kind of vibe that they're using that kind of.
Yeah. Future albums, they get really tight, actually, like really, really, really impressive musically. This one's a little less. It's really good, and everything sounds great, but it's not as tight. I keep using the same word. I keep wanting to say other words and using the same word.
Yeah, that's a real problem with this podcast, man. Let me tell you, there's only so many words you can use to describe music.
Yes, absolutely. This is not an easy one. Yeah. Not easy to describe music.
Yeah, but we'll move on to the second one, Wings Over Cyrus.
Oh, can I real quick just say kind of his character, because I think the character
journey is the most important part of this album. It's all about the character and the narrative, and like this song sets him up. It basically it describes who he is. He's this captain. There's all these men on his boat. And it kind of describes all the men in sort of a silly way. Like, there's the one-handed gunner. We call him that because he lost his hand. Like, it's just like kind of silly stuff. But it also sets him up as like, this is his purpose in life. He loves being on this boat. But then at night when he dreams of being with her. Like, of being with this mystery woman that's in his head. This woman that he wants to be with. But he's scared that she will tie him down with twine and sweet perfume. One more anchor, one foot in my tomb, I think is the line. And
okay. Yeah.
Brandy, you're fine.
Actually, I was reminded of that song too, John, in one of the tracks, but
Yeah. This is very much that. I love also this. I think this whole thing is obviously it's an allegory for a relationship, because it also is a relationship. But I think this is an allegory for being in a band.
Okay.
To some degree, because and I've seen bands use it a lot. I think that song Brandy uses it, and there's a number of good rock songs that use the idea of being a sailor, because I think that bands being out in a van with their dudes feels like they're out on the road when they're on the road.
In a modern sailor.
Yes, and so I think a lot of bands use that as an allegory for this, and then he says he wakes
that way, but that's totally good point.
There's a really great song by Fun. No, it's the Format called if work permits. And it's just about, it says, sometimes when sailors are sailing, they think twice about where they're anchoring. And I think I could make better use of my time on land, because when he comes home, he's not getting a sweet reception from the lady he loves. Like and I love that sort of, you're a sailor. You're out on the road all the time. You're the modern sailor, exactly.
Yeah. And the
riding
Annelies,
the open highway.
Well, I was gonna say Annelies has a similar kind of background because she's a pilot, so she's always flying in the sky. I mean, she does touch down or whatever at probably the same spot a lot, but I mean it's they're different but similar lives.
Which is the next song, Wings Over Syros Island. And it like even just the fact that it's Wings Over Syros Island, she has a home. Yeah. And throughout the album, she talks about her home and missing her home. Like, he is the guy who doesn't need a home, and she is the girl with the home. And I guess that's the next track. So
here's Wings Over Syros Island.
Will you marry me, my darling? Can't you hear my voices calling? Give me your undying love, and I'll be your seafaring husband.
Yeah.
That right there is a really, really tight poppy. That could be on the radio.
He really sounded a lot like Kurt Cobain sounded.
Oh, like kind of how, like the way he's saying it.
I like the beginning in particular. I was a big fan of it.
All right,
it's got a little similar production trick there. The double vocals,
very very Novocaine sounding.
Yeah. This song, it's interesting. That the part you played is the end, but the song is a much more like, it's a very happy, peaceful song, and it's about her as a pilot flying over her town and just loving where she is and being. But the line, and I actually, it makes me feel. I cannot say this line without getting choked up because I feel it so deeply. Yeah. She says, "I wish I had someone else to share it with, so I could validate my bliss."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that line...
That is definitely a punch in the stomach line.
It's a punch in the stomach, but it's also like, it's why I'm here on this podcast right now. You know what I mean? Like, I want to share this album with you guys and your audience because I want to, like, I love this so much and I want to share it with someone. And that's, I think, as music fans, that's what we do. We try to find people that we can share our music taste with and share and like just geek out. It's the same thing with the MCU stuff. Geek out about a thing you love.
I think that it's like something that people just need in general. Like, to talk about like your Stranded Panda army, right?
Right. Stranded Panda is my network, and the Stranded Panda army is basically the email list, but it's like what we use to like sort of organize and talk to our people.
It's where I go for my MCU memes and news.
Stranded Panda chat on Facebook is what you're talking about. Yeah.
But you have your Twitch stream where you are creating this community where, and that's something you talk about a lot, is that it's a place for a certain kind of nerd, right? Is that
right? Stranded Panda, a place for a rare breed of geek, I think is what the website says or something.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of fans are looking for, especially on the internet when they're like just trying to find others that are like-minded. Once you find that group or whatever, like it's really nice.
Yeah. And I think the more and more I thought a lot about this, building Stranded Panda, the network, and like, what do you do to build that community? And it's like, it's the same thing that bands do. It's why you wear a band's t-shirt. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's why you wear a band's t-shirt and why certain styles of music have similar dress codes to some degree. Because you look on the street and you go, that's one of my people. I see from the big gauges in his ear, he probably listens to similar music as me. It's like a thing where we sort of organize around these concepts and visual representations so that we can find each other. On the internet, it's a lot different. You can just literally search for people that like the thing you like and join communities.
Exactly. Like it's kind of like the equivalent back in the day would be IRL. Like that's what that's part of the reason punks in the 80s were so extravagant. Like they had to show to the other punks around like, yo, we are on the same page as you with this punk rock. Yeah. That's like one of the most extreme examples, but it's something that will always happen as long as there are people that have their cliques, and I mean, I guess it's your tribe or whatever. Not to it's a weird term to use, but it's like when you find your tribe, it's nice. To be able
absolutely.
To
That's it. I used to think the tribe thing, like I'd never read the book, Seth Godin's Tribes. I think it's Seth Godin, right?
I never read about that, but
it's a book by him. That's kind of where that concept was popularized by him.
Oh, okay.
And I always thought that the concept was you build a tribe around a thing, but building Stranded Panda, the network, like I have learned that it's more about finding your tribe, finding people you connect with. It's not about like building people. They're fans of my thing, so they'll become a tribe. It's like, no, they're fans of my thing because they were similar enough to become a tribe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a totally different vibe, and it's way more honest and less markety and more just like, let's bring people together that like the same stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I prefer to find media. That's the way I prefer. Like, that's the media I end up loving the most. Is stuff that I have an actual connection with others with. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, me and John, like, we met because like I would go into his pizza shop he was working at, and we would chat about MCU stuff, and eventually I worked at his pizza shop, and we kept talking about MCU stuff, and
also worked pizza for years, by the way.
Oh yeah, you got to do a little bit of pizza, man. It's one of the best.
I worked pizza for like 10 years, so like
did you do
it's
delivery,
just really funny.
Or?
Yeah, delivery mostly. Worked a little inside too, but it's just really funny. We keep talking and keep finding more things. We're both preacher's kids.
Yeah.
Both
Brad,
preacher's kids.
Brad was delivery. I was in shop.
Oh yeah.
We spent a lot of nights.
Oh, I can
a lot of nights like closing together.
Oh yeah.
I can tell just by your personalities who was a driver and who was an inside person.
Oh yeah.
Right. I don't know what that means.
That's funny.
But for creative types though, pizza delivery is kind of like almost a cheat for keeping your creative stuff afloat, because like it's minimal hours for the maximum amount of money you can get for those hours, kind of.
Well, you also spend a bunch of time on the road being able to think about your creative ideas. I wrote a lot of my favorite songs driving around in the car, and listening to music and listening to podcasts about creativity and listening to podcasts about marketing creativity and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
So what we're telling you guys is if you want to do something creative, quit your job and start pizza delivery right now.
Yeah, look at us. We're total success stories.
Look at
us. You guys may be. I am not. I'm still very much struggling.
Oh no.
But
I think a lot of people are struggling. But get back to this song though.
Yes.
I forget how we got into this, but yeah.
Yeah, so I said the whole thing about validating our bliss, and then we started talking about art and how it connects people.
We went and validated our bliss.
Sorry about that.
But yeah, no. But it's a very like both sides of this story are very longing, and they're both very lonely people.
Yes. They really want they really want a romantic relationship. They both are very happy doing what they're doing and being who they are, but they really want that romantic connection. And one of the things I think that I never really realized was sort of a little bit of foreshadowing, which I probably shouldn't say because it's probably a little spoiler. There's a line that I never really understood why it was in there, but it says, there's a doll on the ground, so I looked around. And it's like, you ever heard the concept of save the cat in screenwriting?
Oh, to like make a character more sympathetic,
good, trustworthy, whatever. You're proving they have moral value by giving them small thing to do in the beginning of the story, so that they do something for someone else. So that and the beginning of the story, there's just a random line where it says she found a doll on the ground. Some kid had lost their doll, and she looked around for the kid, and it's like this moment where you're like, oh, she's just a sweet girl, and I like that a lot. And then in the song, she meets the dashing captain. Is she stunned by him? And then he proposes in fireworks at the end. He cannons from his ship fire big fireworks, and he proposes and says, "Will you marry me, my darling?" The part you played at the beginning of this song.
Yeah, it was really between that section and the section you were talking about where you get choked up that I was picking between.
But, yeah. And I also really like the line, "Give me your undying love and I'll be your seafaring husband," because that feels like a really bad trade, right?
Yeah, actually, when you think about it, well, yeah, knowing what I know in the future of the album, yeah.
Right. I think it's a little bit of foreshadowing, but also just like even just as a line, it's really funny. "Give me your undying love and I'll be your seafaring husband." Like, it's sweet, but also like you're kind of
it's sweet but naive.
What is that?
It's sweet but naive. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sweet but naive, but also sort of selfish a little bit. Like, you come to me, give me everything, and I'll give you. And I'll be the guy I am, like, which is
and I was a little confused at first with this, but they do a great job of painting both characters really well.
Totally agree.
And one thing that going forward in the album is a theme is anchors and feathers.
Yes. Oh, by the way, can you please play the very first line of this song if you're going to do the 15 seconds?
I can't because it's too late. 15 seconds per song because copyright stuff. It's all because of copyright rules. I know. I wish I could just grab whatever I could, but yeah, it's a really nice line. But yeah, this song is anchors and feathers, and it is kind of the allegory for the two characters.
Yeah.
Now we climb with my darling Annelies there by my side.
Yeah.
This one is the pop song of the whole thing. There's really not a lot of pop going on. I mean, like, there's not a lot of choruses that repeat where you can sing along after the first time you listen, but this song has... the very first line is, "The last firecracker put a dent in the sky, and I waited in the silence for her reply." And it's just so epic and big, and that's the same melody there in the second verse. I love it so much. It's so rocking,
more so than the rest of the album.
Well, yeah, because it's the whole song's like it is all in that vein. Because like a lot of times in this album, like it goes kind of almost into with a couple songs within the same song. There's different like genres it switches between, but this one is just all energy, all rocking all the way through.
Yeah. Lots of great energy, and you get the next piece of the story, which is it's kind of that moment in the movie where the two lovers run out to the car and run away together, and she goes down to they get married, and she hitches her plane to the back of his boat. It says he tows her single engine out to sea, and so she goes to live on the boat. And it looks very happy in the moment. They're going to live on this boat, and she's going to have her
plane, and he's going to have his boat. It's going to be wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it does. It sets it up to be the perfect. Well, I mean, obviously not perfect, but like it's like that kind of young lovers running away thing.
Yeah.
End of the Graduate, where they're looking at each other on the bus.
Oh my God, that's one of the most depressing moments in cinema history for me. I gotta say,
I've still never seen The Graduate. I feel.
Man.
It's one of those classics.
I won't spoil it. You should watch it though. It definitely. I can see where John is saying it's kind of similar kind of thing going on.
Neat.
But
another thing especially knowing what we know.
Yes.
Yeah. Another thing I have to mention for this one is the last line of the song is, "I retired to my quarters, just me and my girl."
Oh yeah.
And it's like they got married, they get on the boat. "I retired to my quarters, just me and my girl." And then it goes into this musical section that's like, I just call it the sex music of the album. It's still like just like really
that's the
intense.
Only time they do like regular kind of guitar solo-y stuff, right? Like electric guitar.
Pretty much. Yeah, there's not much electric on the album, really.
It's more,
at least not featured.
Yeah, it's more folksy. A lot of acoustic things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first played this for my current girlfriend, Alyssa, we first started dating years ago. I told her about that. I said, oh, listen to this part. This is the sex music. This is when we're just now dating. We've just barely met. We've been dating a couple weeks or something. And it's like that. This is the sex music. You hear it like, and she goes, if you think that's sex music, I'm pretty worried.
Yes.
And I was like, well, that's the thing. It's from his perspective. It's the male gaze. It's the male gaze sex music.
Well, and it's not music to make love to. It is sex music.
Right. It's the music that
his interpretation of what sex
Kind of like Why Don't We Do It in the Road by the Beatles. You know?
Right.
Why don't we do it? It's just like it's just all about just let's fuck in the road. Like that's all it is.
It's down and dirty sex is what that it's like getting down.
Yeah, it's fun. But yeah, so things are still looking good for these guys.
Stars things are looking up.
But there's I think that Trouble in Paradise is starting to.
Yeah, then there's an interlude, which I guess we're gonna skip, right?
Skip the first one.
Yeah, there's an instrumental interlude that's just kind of happy-go-lucky little song, little tune, and it's a year passing. The first line of this next song is
I missed.
It's the clip part of the movie. They're happy and skipping along. They got they're holding hands.
It's like fairly happy
out outside.
Yeah.
It's like a fairly happy year is what that little song I think represents. And then the first line of this next song is 7 Seas and a 1-year anniversary.
Oh,
and it's her perspective on where they are a year in.
Yeah. So this is 7 Seas.
7 seas between me and my whole family. I'm feeling uninspired because I'm seasick and I'm tired.
Now, before we get into this one, I had to pick this particular moment in the song because, like, I feel like a lot of people feel like this right now. It just in general, just the idea, like, stuck from, like, being separated from your family, feeling uninspired, seasick and tired. Like, there's a lot of stuff like hitting some emotional notes for me in this track.
Well, and it's that she isn't where she is supposed to be. She loves her home. She didn't want to leave her home. She wanted to be with someone. And even the beginning of the thing is she says, to validate my bliss, she wanted to show someone her life that she loved. And instead she's on a boat. Yeah. And there's she says in the next line I think after that was, yesterday I made a friend I woke up and it flew in. It was carried by the wind while you were laughing with the men. And it's just this idea that she's having her own little life. And the friend she makes is a bird. It was not clear to me when I was listening to this. They actually did a musical version of this. You can buy a DVD, I think, on their website.
Really?
Of like the musical?
I was going to say, this would make a good musical. Like
I always thought so too. And then I got the DVD and it's kind of a crappy production. Because like I said, they're a very small band. So at least the way they videoed it is basically a camcorder in the back of the room. And it's just not very good. So I don't really recommend checking it out. I would check out the album instead of that.
They don't even have, like, on Genius.com, they don't even have all of the songs lyrics.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're that's what level of of fame they hit.
Yep. It like I have to type in
like an engine faltering.
Yeah, if I type in any of these songs from Ribbons of War, if I go Ribbons of War, or if I type into the song titles, lyrics, and then type extra, and it won't even autofill Extraordinaires.
Yeah, that's how low level this album is.
Yeah, I had to go to friggin' A to Z lyrics where they like censor death and stuff. They have like it would be D *** TH. I don't even understand. But yeah, it was so But I'm sorry. What were you saying? What were you? I feel like I interrupted a thought.
I don't remember what I was saying, but I have a lot to say about she's just living her own little life and doesn't feel connected to what's going on in the ship. That's his world. That's his men. That's his like experience, and she's just kind of there and feels added on and doesn't feel at home. And the last line of the song is so heartbreaking. She says, "I'm drowning without flying," and it's clear that she hasn't been able to fly, even though she brought her plane with her. Yeah. That's just not something she gets to do much, and now she's just feels lonely and far away from home. Yeah. And I guess at the end of the song, she says, I'm drowning without flying, and I guess that means she's going to start flying again. She's going to try. And this next song. It's called Seeds of Jealousy. If you want, I don't know if we want to go and get into it.
Thank you.
The next song is Seeds of Jealousy.
I rarely get a transition set up for me, so this is nice.
Sorry.
No. This is nice.
Taking the job.
Seeds of Jealousy coming up.
But yeah, the next song is called Seeds of Jealousy, and it's his response to her, I guess, deciding to fly again or fly, like his response to her flying, and it's an amazing song. One of my favorites.
Here we go, Seeds of Jealousy.
Every time I turn around, you're laughing up above. Why am I not good enough? The competition's killing us. You seem like you're on the run, and I just can't keep up.
You tell me all the time that I'm your one and only love, but every time I turn around, you're laughing up above. Like, it's just such good poetry, man. It's just so good.
Yeah, he's really good at. That's the one thing is like one of the best parts about his lyricism is it is very well written.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he writes short stories as well or anything.
I'll tell you, I feel like he's a big fan of classic writing, like classic. I mean, this was very classic, folksy. You know?
Absolutely. I gotta say though, Brad, you said I wonder if he writes short stories as well. Guess what their second album's called.
Oh, is it called? Wait, I think I did see it was called Short Stories.
Yeah, it's called Short Stories, and it's basically they did this big long epic, and their second album is them writing similar story songs, but they're all single one song things. So it's all short stories, but they're all So it's just very funny. You're like, I wonder if he writes short stories.
He did, in fact. He did write short stories.
He wrote a whole album of short stories.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do that one sometime, too. That sounds like a really interesting... Because that's a very interesting concept right there.
It gets a little less character developy because, it's not all... So it's a lot of like little short, silly almost songs. Uh-huh. But some of them are really, really good. I like the whole thing, but it's definitely not as... sweeping emotionally as this one is.
This is because
not as all-encompassing.
This is like getting to kind of almost like a crescendo of the album where everything is kind of coming to a head. Because like we said in the last song, she's missing her freedom, she's missing the sky, and because she had her own kind of freedom before getting hitched with the sailor or with the captain. But it was a different kind of freedom than the sailor. So like, I feel like this is the point where he's like, oh man, I'll never be able to understand the pilot aspect of her life or something.
Yeah. And he also feels a little like there's something going on. Because he can't understand why she loves this so much. And because he can't understand her passion for flying and that freedom she feels, he starts to think there's actually something going on. Uh-huh. He says, we tell each other everything you promised with that wedding ring, Annelies. Like you tell me the truth. Like what's going on? Who are you with? Why are you actually smiling and laughing up there? What's going on?
Yeah. Exactly. And that's something that we can. I think a lot of us have had like that experience where we're jealous to the point where we can't even understand it. It's just taking over, and and sometimes it's just done.
Yeah. And that's what the middle of the song is like, where he really gets done. And this is spoiler alert. If you want to go listen to it. This is the heel turn of the album. He says there's a tempo change, there's a big tempo shift in the song, and it changes. And before that, he's jealousy. There's a lot of rage and there's a lot of confusion in him. Like, why do I feel this way? He says, it scares me half to death because I'm not the jealous type. Like, I don't think of myself as the jealous type, but clearly he is. And then it switches in the middle. The music picks up tempo, and he turns, instead of being like sort of that confused, jealousy, sort of rage-filled guy, he just turns into like methodically villainous. Like, he decides to lock her in his cabin. So he locks Annelies up, and tells her if he can't have her, no one can.
Yeah, and it's like that. Yeah, you're right. That is the moment where it's like, oh, you can't even. He's not. What's the word I was having a hard time remembering earlier? Relatable.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
But that's the thing. He so is, and that's what's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like, I like you said, I do the MCU cast, and because I love to talk about stories, and I love to talk about characters and themes like this. And this is not just a musical album. The characters are so complex, and that the same guy who's just screaming about the last firecracker put a dent in the sky, and he's like singing this great love song, is now the guy who is throwing her in the bowels of the ship and locking her away. And that's hard to rectify, but they do such a good job of actually seeing him do that villain turn in the song, and I think it's amazing.
Well, like, passion in itself in a relationship can be have some have a certain amount of longevity, but like you have to also support each other and do each other's things, and really get involved in each other's lives for it to be like a healthy kind of thing. So
yes, absolutely.
There's an imbalance here that needs to be addressed. And what was the next song again?
The next song is A Letter Home.
Yeah, and this is
her writing.
Her perspective again.
This is from her perspective, and she's writing to her father. And so it's her in captivity writing to her father, and kind of you can go and play a piece if you like.
Yeah.
Take this note and fly away. Don't hesitate tonight. Make one sound and you'll be found and shot down at
midnight. And it's the line she says is, "I'm being held a captive by the one and only love of my life." And the whole theme, she's writing this letter to her father, and the bird she said she met a friend in another verse. And in that song, she mentions that it looks like her home, like it's a bird from her homeland, I guess. So she ties a note to that bird's foot so that it'll take it back to her home. Dang. And that's the letter.
They really fleshed this out.
Right?
Yeah. It's like rewatching an MCU movie and finding something in the background. It's like, oh, there's another part of that story, I guess.
Yeah, I loved it.
Nice. But yeah, it's I think is this the first time they mentioned ribbons?
Oh, it may be. She's talking to her father. She says that line I just mentioned. Then she says, I may have to tie my ribbons extra tight, which they don't do a good job of explaining exactly what's happening here. But she talks about ribbons of war and tying her ribbons up.
So I have a theory.
Go ahead.
So you ever read the series of Unfortunate Events?
I have not.
So the sister of the children in that, you're familiar with the concept though, right? The parents die, and there's this bad dude that like is in charge of them and blah blah blah. But there's one character in that, the sister, and she's super smart. She's like the smartest of the three, and like in order to like concentrate on the task at hand in an almost like superhuman way, she ties her hair back out of her face so that she's not like distracted or whatever. So I wonder if they read a series of Unfortunate Events,
and they're referencing that,
and that's what they were inspired by that, because it is something I remember.
I love that theory.
I love that theory of it as a reference to that. But I think they don't do a good job explaining exactly what happens here.
Yeah.
But they do in a later moment, and I think the next song, he talks about how she's tied her ribbons up and how it's a temptation to kiss her.
Yeah.
And even though they've been in this sort of state of where she is a captive of his, I think what it is the ribbons represent her using her sort of feminine wiles on him. That's, I think. And she's basically trying to decide if she should use her feminine wiles to escape. And she says that he knows that if she tries to escape, that he's going to try to stop her, and they're gonna not survive. And she says, she's helpless to decide whether even though she's a captive of this man, she's helpless to decide because he's her one and only love, and she can't decide whether she wants to actually stop him or not.
Yeah.
Wants to escape.
Well, yeah, that's the thing about this is it's much like your Romeo and Juliet scenario. It's she still loves him even though even though all of this stuff has occurred, and she she says right there, this is goodbye. I love you, Father. I love you, but this is goodbye. Without each other, we can't survive. So
yes,
it very much turns to a star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet. I mean, spoiler alert.
Yeah, Romeo and Juliet, but it's not that they die by mistake trying to be with each other. It's that they are basically deciding that if they are going to, if they can't be together, it's just what he said. If I can't have you, no one can. And then she's like, if I can't be with you, I don't care about living. So I guess I'm going to start this fight. And then the next song is War Song. It's the two of them.
Yeah.
She decides to tie her ribbons extra tight and go to war with him.
Well, yeah, I'm imagining like she's giving him one last kiss, and then when his back's turned, she's like running to her plane and like taking off.
Yes, I think something like that. Like maybe she uses her feminine wiles, the ribbons, whatever that means, to convince him into her room and uses that as a way of escaping. I imagine something like, smashing him over the head with a vase or something classic from a movie, and then she runs out, gets in her plane. But the next song is, you want to play a piece of War Song?
That's the next tune.
Well, I was going to say, I was going to play War Song and then just play the interlude as well, just because that's kind of the audio example.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I'm just going to play them both in a row. Here's actually it is interlude 2 into the War Song. So
so interlude is basically, it sounds like an old timey war battle, which this is an old timey ship with an old timey plane, so it makes sense.
Yeah. So here's interlude into War Song.
I love that beginning.
It's a great clip because it shows there's two lead singers there, which all throughout this album, there's been one lead singer going back and forth between the two voices per song. This song, they do something totally different, and every stanza is from a different character's perspective. So they go from the male perspective, the female, Annelies to the captain, to Annelies to the captain. And then in the end, they're both singing at the same time, and they're singing.
Yeah.
What's that, John?
It's the battle.
Yes, it's the battle. It's the war song.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I really loved the way that they did that. Like you can it's one of them is in the right ear, one of them is in the left ear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, that's the one thing that doesn't translate.
Yeah, I get mono from you.
Yeah,
that's cool. I hadn't remembered that from listening to this on headphones years ago.
Yeah, so I was like, since I was reading the lyrics along with it, I had this like weird mental trip where like. One time I read it one way, and one time I heard one part, and one time I heard the other part. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
Because I was reading along with it, so I was like, I was anchoring the words to what I was hearing.
Yeah, totally.
Anchoring, which I think we can reveal now that Anchors and Feathers idea.
Yeah.
I think he's bringing them down, and there's like this sort of angels and demons idea going on here too, which I don't know. When I was younger and listened to this album, I never really realized how much of a villain he is. I know he did this horrible thing in the middle, but like he is the villain of the piece. Like even in the very first moments of the thing, he's like this dashing guy who comes in and says like, oh, come give me your undying love and I'll be your seafaring husband. Like there's just sort of like always this sort of inequity between them. And, and then his jealousy gets the better of him, but they do such a good job of making him a real character at the same time. And I just love it. And this song, they both basically, they trade lines, they're fighting, but they both still love each other. They both don't want to kill each other. And there's a line that she says, cause they have the theme, sorry.
The theme.
The line they keep coming back to is, but you're wrong. Because they say like they kind of saying that they think the other person is underestimating them. Like, oh, you think you can get away? No, you're wrong. I've got enough ammunition to bring you to the ground. And she says, you think I'm just going to crumble underneath your feet, but you're wrong. Because I got wingside turrets and some bullets that I'm willing to use.
I love that line, by the way. That was the other line I was thinking of picking. But yeah.
Oh, I love it so much. I love it so much.
Yeah. He has a nice flow about it when he's singing it.
Yeah, he's he's a poet, man. He really is.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it is really like too bad that like this didn't get more attention. But I assume that there was a lot of. I mean, that was like a really big moment for indie in general. Yeah. So
I think this album did get some attention. It was on. I think it was NPR All Songs Considered. You know that?
Okay.
I guess they kind of uncovered it and played it on NPR, and it got a little attention because of that. That's how I heard of it. One of my friends heard it on that and then shared it with me. And so it got around a little bit, but I think they just they weren't able to, I guess, capitalize on that and turn it into something bigger. Because I think, but I just think these guys are geniuses.
It's a great, I mean, at least this period of what they're writing was really, really great stuff. Because I don't know much about their, the rest of their discography, but this is very developed.
Yeah, they have some. Nothing ever hits the heights of this, I think, but they definitely have some interesting stuff. They just never try to replicate this. They just decide to do very different things. Short Songs is the next album. Then the song after that is called Electric and Benevolent.
Okay.
And it is a concept album. They're all concept albums, by the way.
Nice.
It's a concept album about Tesla.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah.
That's fun.
It's really, really strange. It's like they tell all these songs about Tesla's life, which I guess they were just really interested in, but it's really good. That one's the one that's tight as hell. Like the band is really, really tight and much more electric than this one.
Maybe they took some notes from Neutral Milk Hotel, because like nothing, in an aeroplane over the sea is like, it's what everyone talks about. It's what everyone loves the most about, their legendary, stuff. But I feel like they were kind of like shadowed by that album, and they never like, could replicate it. And I think maybe this band was like, you know what, we're going to not do that. We're going to keep doing stuff. And, whether or not it was the same, emotional investment. Because, I mean, you can't always put out that emotional investment every time.
Yeah, well, this album, and I haven't mentioned this till now, but I was going through a really hard breakup at the time. And this album, and it was very similar. Me and the girl I was breaking up with, I was constantly questioning if it was the right thing to do, if we should really be apart. But the thing that was, we had very different plans for our lives, and they did not line up at all. There was nothing about them that we could like make work. Like we wanted to live in different continents, but we loved each other, but we didn't want to, there was such a different desire for our futures that it just wasn't working. And this album, I would put it on anytime I was really sad, and it would encourage me because of the tragedy that it is. It would the tragedy would make me feel like some semblance of, like comfort in the tragedy, I guess. That maybe I dodged a bullet, even though I didn't feel that way at the time. But her last line, are you guys fans of Hamilton at all?
I have heard it all the way through a couple times. I haven't heard it a lot, but it's good.
Yeah, I love Hamilton, but the one of the key moments of it is that he aims his gun in the air instead of firing.
Oh yeah.
That's how it happened. He aims they get to the last duel, and instead of aiming at the person, he aims in the air because he doesn't want to. He says that if he aims in the air, the guy won't shoot him. Like, sure, he says that earlier. Anyway, it's like an honor thing where he aims his gun in the air because he doesn't actually want to kill the person, but he still goes to the duel. He stands there, he pulls his gun, aims in the air, but the other guy shoots him. And that's spoiler alert.
Oh, okay.
But I guess spoiler alert for history. But
right. Right.
But isn't that the ultimate spoiler alert?
Yeah,
history class.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this song ends with something very similar, and I hadn't really revisited this since I'd been listening to Hamilton. But she says, "If I were to send this bullet to you to sink your ship along with your crew, I'd only destroy what keeps me alive. So I'm letting go of the throttle for you." And she decides to release her weapons and not fire at her, and they're having this epic battle, and she decides not to fire. And unfortunately, what happens next, but she decides to give up, basically.
Yeah.
And
before we get there, there's the sad tale of Eli Culp.
Yes, which this song, you want to play a piece of it first, and we'll talk about it?
Yeah.
So this song is definitely the outlier of the album.
Yeah.
This is another one that like took me a long time to understand what was going on, because it's clearly a male singing about his wife, but he talks about his wife dying days ago and how sad he is about it. And I was just like, what is happening? Because it doesn't match up with the rest of the album. Turns out, I found out later that it is a man on an island watching his wife has died. They tell his backstory for the first half of the song. His wife has died. He's stranded on an island, and he is watching the battle take place between Annelies and the captain.
Yeah,
and
odd.
It's very odd, and it's a very weird choice.
Yeah, it is the ultimate. I just feel like they finished this off so nicely. That last song, it just feels good. Everything right. You feel like it's the end of the story. All right, let's throw in this dude who's just been creepily watching from the island. It's hilarious. But what if they don't listen? No. They're going to feel like, but some hardcore fan's going to be like, but there's another song. We should keep listening. And then they're just going to get their freaking minds blown.
Yeah. I used to feel, like this song was like, it's such a different feel. I don't hate it or anything. It's just such a different feel that I used to think that it was like, and it may be this, but that it was like one of the other guys in the band wanted to write a song. You know what I mean?
Like a Ringo.
Exactly. Like this may be the Ringo song or something. Like maybe the drummer wanted to write one. That's what I used to think. But then, and that may be the case. I don't know who wrote each song. But what I realize now is this whole album is told from the first person perspective.
Yeah.
And if I had that challenge as a writer and I was going like, how do I tell the death and the destruction of the two main characters from a first person perspective? Like, how do I tell this? How do I have a character sing about their deaths? So then he goes outside of those two characters and creates this Eli Culp who's going to sit on an island and watch them die. And that's like a way of telling about the destruction, you know?
Yeah. And I'd like to think that Eli Culp has a big story after this, because I mean he's got all these materials around him now. Maybe he can get off that deserted island or something.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah.
I may be wrong. I think they might have done another song from his perspective on another album.
That would be fun. That'd be really cool if they revisit that character, because I like that he's got a name. Like, he's got a first and last name. Like the main lady is Annelies and the main guy is the captain. But
the captain never gets a name, which I have things to say about that.
But this guy's got a full name. So yeah, it is very strange that they decided to go that way with it.
Yeah, it's a strange choice. I don't hate it, but I do find it a little strange in the middle of this thing.
But yeah, so War Song was kind of a cap to, seemed like a cap to this story in general because she's falling towards the ship. But this next song, Ribbons of War Part 1, is kind of, is Annelies kind of being able to fully explain, I guess, is this as they're like sinking or something?
So yeah, this is something I'd ever realized how much of this album is after their death. So there's 14 songs in this album. 4 of them, 5 if you count that interlude, are basically post-death.
Yeah.
So they died. She releases the throttle, and then Eli Culp describes their death. And the Eli Culp song, and also Ribbons of War Part 1, A Proud Salute, and Ribbons of War Part 2 are all after their death. So this is them from beyond the grave. This is Annelies from beyond the grave describing her story. And it's actually kind of interesting because the vast majority of this is already in the story.
Yeah, it's kind of reiterating a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this is Annelies 3-8. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm Brett. I'm sorry, Brett.
Okay.
I talked too much.
But yeah, it's like that. Yeah, putting them to one like complete song. Like if you wanted to just know like the whole story, you could listen to this one and the Captain's one. You'd get a lot of what the story is.
Yes, you do. And it actually helps a lot if you're on a re-listen of this album. If you're like, what was going on? Then you start to get, oh, she said this happens. I see where that's happening in the main album.
This might even be the first time you're realizing there's another character.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's totally true.
Yeah, because it says Part 1, Annelies. It's like, wait, who's Annelies? Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Oh, Annelies is the girl who's been singing this whole time. I get it.
Yeah, so here's Part 1, Ribbons of War Part 1, Annelies.
Open air. I kissed him one last time as I tied ribbons in my hair. Ribbons of war.
Yeah, my dog's starting to get impatient too. He's at the door.
Yeah. Can you hold 1 second? My dog's barking. My girlfriend just got home, so my dog's barking at the door.
That's fine.
I'll be right back.
All right, sounds good. This is our album concept hour intermission, and we're coming at you live with Matthew Carroll from the MCU cast. They have 500 episodes out, guys. They just hit 500.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a milestone. Pretty proud of them.
That is a milestone. I mean, what are we at? We at like 40?
We're at this is 48, I think.
Oh man, we got 50.
We're almost at the 5-0, man. We're almost at the 5-0. I'm excited. But yeah, and then Phase 4 is about to happen for the MCU, so like they'll finally have more stuff to talk about on their cast. So far, they've been kind of covering like the latest MCU news and theorizing about like what's going to happen next and stuff. And WandaVision coming up, Loki's coming up, Falcon and Winter Soldier.
WandaVision looks really good.
WandaVision looks cool. I'm actually excited about that. Yeah.
Well, because that actually happened in the comics. They had a whole marriage.
Oh, really?
Almost had kids. She went crazy. It's part of the reason why she blew up the Avengers back in like 2005.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah. There's a whole crazy story with Wanda.
Are you a fan of the comics, Matt?
Not a lot.
You're just more of the movies?
Yeah, I like listen. I never read them much when I was a kid. Well, that's not true. I read a lot when I was a kid, but I was so poor, I could never afford a full arc. And so I read a lot of like single issues of comics when I was a kid. I loved them. So I knew the characters. I kind of knew who they were, but I didn't know how everything fit together. And then when I got older, I kind of fell out of it. And then when the movies came out, I kind of got back into it. But I still haven't really... We do a little bit of comics reading for the podcast, but sort of our... one of our goals on the podcast is to not be the comics podcast. We are the MCU podcast for the people who don't know much about the comics.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's pretty much me. That's why I enjoyed it too, is because like I watched the cartoons as a kid, but like I jumped on the bandwagon real hard with the MCU.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Just great storytelling and everything. But yeah, we were on.
See, that's why, as a purist, that's why I love the MCU, because it's a great way of bringing it into the modern world.
Yeah.
Well, and there's like
classic telling, but retelling it modern.
Well, there's the OCD part about me that loves the fact that they do fit together like a puzzle for the most part. That's just, not done a whole lot.
And that's really done in the memory of Stan Lee, because that's the way Stan Lee wrote the entire MCU.
Yeah.
From the beginning, they were never meant to be like just characters in separate cities. They were most of them were all in New York.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're going to see each other. They're going to cross paths.
Yeah.
That was Stan Lee's vision from the beginning. Go on.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, we were talking about Ribbons of War Part 1, Annelies.
Yes, sorry about that. Sorry, my dog was freaking out.
That's fine.
Yeah, and like we said before, you played the. Sorry, go ahead.
I said I think we just played the clip.
Yeah. Like we said right before you played the clip, this is just Annelies retelling the entire story. He says he just couldn't share me with the sky and open air, and I just think that's just her describing her own feelings about the whole story and his feelings about the story. So it's just a really nice recap of the whole thing, which is just a lot of fun. And then it ends with, in death we are as one, the ashes of our love. And it's the idea that they crash together. And he kind of echoes this in his version of this same tune.
Because they're similar tunes, both of them.
Yes. Oh, they're almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
They don't end up the same place, but they start with, this is my... Here's the tale I never got to tell. This is my farewell.
All about how I had to move in with my aunt and uncle in Bel Air or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Origins.
I like the bells and the whistles and all the carnival sounds in the background there.
Yeah, I was saying
it really kind of highlights the madness going on about the whole thing.
Yeah, I was saying it gets a little circusy at this part of the album.
Circusy,
Like from the Eli one on.
Yes, I think that's the post-death thing, and I think it's sort of how they represent, sort of like this may just be me making these connections, but I think of sort of like that carnival clown, sort of like trippy death thing, like idea that you get.
Carnival of death.
Carnival of Death, exactly. And I imagine them like up on stage, like dressed as zombies or something. Like, in death we finally mix as we sink to the abyss, which is actually his song, not hers. But sorry, skipping ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, the My Chemical Romance in the Black Parade has a similar kind of song at the end of their album. It's got a similar vibe, where it's just kind of a circusy, macabre tune. Yeah.
Macabre is a great way of saying the thing I was trying to say.
I think that's what they used to call it.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, that's the way they both kind of get close to this at the end of their song. They say, "If only we had found true love and kept it on dry land." There's a few lines that they sort of mimic in one.
Mistakes were made.
Right.
Yeah. If we had somehow compromised, I think is the idea. And not just gone to one or the other. And we kind of chose the captain's life, and it led to unhappiness.
Yeah. Finding some sort of balance rather than putting one person's stuff ahead of the others. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
But now we have a song for the crew, finally.
Yeah.
We got this crew that we got their names in the first track. And we heard all about them. And now we have a whole song for the crew. It's called A Proud Salute.
Yep, from the men's perspective.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
That's the best surprise lyric.
Yeah, I was like, at first I was like, wait a minute. Is that from that other song?
That is all of those.
Because it fits in, it so seamlessly fits in, you know?
Yeah, and I like that they do
a very pubby song.
Yeah.
They do a little bit of quoting it, but they don't like quote the whole chorus. It sort of like jumps into their own thing.
Yeah, just enough. Because I did look up the lyrics. I'm like, wait, there's a second line from it, but it's just the one line.
Yep.
That's Man-Eater.
Man-Eater.
Holland Oates.
Whoa,
which kind of like
here she comes.
It reminds me of when your friends break up. you kind of pick one side or the other. And them quoting that is like calling her a man-eater, basically.
Yeah,
you know what I
mean? Like, especially from their perspective, you know.
Yes.
Because like their captain, you know, kind of toxically put all of his everything into this, regardless of what that meant for them, you know.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I want to hear a song from the men's perspective, like after the captain has locked her up. Like, what were they thinking at that point? Were they on board fully? Like, yeah, keep your woman in a cage, or were they like, captain's going a little off his rocker here?
Something earlier in the album to like touch base with them, maybe.
Yeah. If I were doing a musical, there'd have to be a character or two that like was like questioning the captain.
Yeah, you're right. There would have to be one thing somewhere in there just to round out the cast. So it's just not the two characters, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think this really could work as like a stage play. I mean, it's a musical because, like, I mean,
totally,
it's got all the pieces. They would just need to write, you know, stuff in between the scenes. Honestly,
yeah, which is what they did with their musical. But it was just it was lo-fi, produced locally, clearly like for a small group of fans.
Yeah,
and they just videoed it with a camcorder. Like, but it could be a thing. I could absolutely see this being a badass musical.
Yeah, definitely. It's got all the bravado and all the, you know, it's big. But yeah, and I love that they're just, you know, like all good soldiers, they're just saluting and just going down with the ship, and you know, they feel it's their duty, which is, you know, it's always a sailor trope, I think, that they're just like married to the sea and like the life.
Well, they have the line, we're going home, we're going down with all we know. And that's like, this is the life they always kind of expected. They never expected to live to be old men. They were going to die somehow on this boat.
Yep. And yeah, the sea is their home.
Exactly, yeah.
They'll be at rest on the ocean floor.
And they say, you wonder why I'm so gung-ho and willing to die? I'll answer proudly, I'm a sailor.
Yeah, there's like nothing more to it, you know?
Yeah,
I'm a sailor.
This is who we are.
Yeah, this is the life I chose. And I mean, to go back to like the band analogy, like that is, again, it's hard to keep relationships going when you're on the road. You all have that camaraderie between you of like not being able to hold down normal relationships or friendships.
Yeah, and it really is the like, and you also have a hard time living a life, like saving for retirement and like doing the things that other people do, having benefits and insurance and all that stuff, because you're a musician, you know, and like you kind of you're willing to go down with that ship because that's the thing you love the most.
Yeah, starving artist. That's the reason that's a term, you know. So yeah, I can see why bands really appreciate this album. It kind of captures that feeling really well. And because there is usually, I mean, you probably know, there is usually a captain in a band, or maybe someone that's either, you know, got too big of an ego, or, you know, something like that. You know, there is a lot of times there is a leader in a band, you know, whether it's good or bad. But I like it most when it's collaborative, but I've definitely been at, you know, my old band, the lead singer / lead guitarist was, you know, he was the songwriter. He was the one that he was the guy in charge. Yeah. Yeah. And
I did music for years the collaborative way, and I could just never get it off the ground because every time, and this is also partially just like being younger and not really, I've learned a lot since then, but
for sure.
We kept getting to the point where we were like ready to tour. So we'd like get an EP together, we'd record, we'd get a tour set, and then a drummer would get a girlfriend and they'd say he couldn't go, or like something like that. Those kinds of things kept happening where like you just had to, the band would never get all the way to really get into what I wanted to do, which was tour and play music. And so finally after that, like the fifth or sixth time a band got close to ready to like really get hit the road, and then it failed, I just finally was like, okay, I guess I'll learn to play guitar, because at the time I was just a singer.
But it is hard to find those people that are willing to kind of stop that normal life and really,
for sure,
really commit.
It's hard to find other sailors. It really is.
It definitely is. Yeah.
And for good or ill, like it's really hard to find those other sailors, and because a lot of the bands do it and they never get success, and then you do end up just dying on the boat, you know?
Yeah, you go down with the ship.
Yep.
But yeah, we're gonna get to the last track though. This is the captain's perspective. Ribbons of War Part 2, The Captain. So.
If only we had found a love and kept it on dry land, looking down on city lights and up at starry nights. I hated having words, but you're so pretty when you fight.
Yeah.
There's that carnival madness.
And I like that little at the end, like, but you're so pretty when you fight line, because it wraps up the relationship into a nice little bow, where it's because like they both, through whether it was healthy or not, they loved each other and adored each other or whatever, and to have that like nice kind of thing at the end is cool.
Yeah, it's sort of toxic though at the same time. Like it's that's their whole relationship. It's like
yeah.
I love you. Oh man, you're so pretty when you fight. Like I almost am okay with the fighting because you're so cute when you do it.
I imagine him like winking as he's like falling, like diving into the abyss.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This song is very much a wink. Like the whole thing. The whole last two songs are them like. And he has a similar line. He says, down at the bottom, we can mingle with the fish. In death, we finally mix, my love, give in to the abyss. Yeah. And it also, feels like something going on with like sort of Davy Jones' Locker sailor talk there, where it's like give into the abyss. The sailors also sing about floating down to the abyss.
Yeah. It is very much a classic sailor tale, like as a whole. Like this would fit right as along with something. I don't know when sea shanties were popular, but like this seems like it would be one of those sea shanty stories that you'd hear.
Guy on the piano,
the pub.
Beer bottles getting thrown. He's just,
exactly. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I've. Yeah, it is. And I've never really. I had a friend that was really into like kind of seafaring and pirate. We would joke that he listened to pirate music.
Yes.
This doesn't feel like pirate music as necessarily.
It definitely elicits it though.
It's there, but it's not so. Yeah. It's not so in your face though that it's like.
It's also a lot more to me. No offense to people who love that sort of pirate music. That sort of Irish drinking song pirate thing. Yeah. I feel like it's very similar. That sort of, no offense to anyone who loves these bands, but that sort of flogging Molly, sort of like, we are like very Irish, very drinking songy, sea shanty sort of thing. It's never been my thing. A lot of times it's, the lyrical content isn't nearly as important to me in those songs. And that's what I love. I love good lyrics. And so this is like, it evokes it musically, but the lyrics are so much more profound here, I think.
Yeah. I agree. And I do think there's a slight nod to her. They mentioned the aeroplane. There is an aeroplane over the sea in this album. I just need to point that out.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow. Does need to point that out.
Just because that had to be in the back of someone's head in the band.
No, absolutely. You know what? You want to know what one of my favorite songs I've ever written is called?
What?
Pilots and Sailors.
Oh.
So after I fell in love with this album so much, I went and wrote a song called Pilots and Sailors that is. It was my story that had related to this. My story of the two people that couldn't get their lives together.
It was like a tribute.
Yeah, and it was so much fun. I actually got to open for these guys one time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. And it was the same situation. I mentioned it earlier. They came to my town and no one was there. So when I heard they were coming to town, I contacted the venue and I was like, can I open for them? I will bring 50 people. I promise. I will absolutely, because I freaking love them, but I will also play and I'll bring 50 people or whatever. And so I opened for them. And it was only my people. My people were the only people there. No one knew them. And I was just like, please don't leave. Stay. This is my favorite band. Do not leave.
Everyone, please.
I know you came to see my band, but these guys are the best.
Yeah.
Man, the way you keep saying this, where do these people keep getting gigs then?
You just work it, man. You work it. And that's the thing. They had a little press early on, I think. I don't know. They're great. They're a great band. And they're just like one of those bands that like lives in a van. And when they got to town, that night they were in my town. I was like, where you guys staying? And they didn't have a place yet, and they came and crashed on my floor. Nice. And it was just like,
that's just awesome.
It was awesome. It was one of my favorite nights because it's just like I love those guys. And it was so cool to have them in my house. They're just one of those bands. They're the Sailors, man. They're freaking doing their thing and making their music and. Yeah, I want everyone to know about it. I freaking love this album.
Yeah, well, I really enjoyed this album, and I'm definitely gonna check out more of the Extraordinaires, especially short stories.
Short stories is really easily consumable. You don't have to give it like an hour. You can just throw on a song and check it out.
Yeah. But one last thing we like to do before we get out of the podcast is we go around and we ask what everyone's been listening to, which is also a plug section, but not everyone always has plugs on the podcast, so. Okay. Yeah. I'll start with John. What have you been listening to, John?
Oh, I've been listening to a lot of MGMT radio.
Oh yeah, nice. I saw a little documentary about them that was really good on YouTube.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
A lot of the Head and the Heart. I really got into their song. They got a song like Honeybee. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Otherwise, just a lot of easy listening on Sundays. Me and this guy Robert have been working like every Sunday for a while.
Okay.
So as soon as the bosses leave, we turn on this I got this easy listening Pandora station.
Nice.
We just have nice quiet Sundays. And that's like a lot of Arlo Guthrie and.
Arlo Guthrie, that's always fun. If anyone that hasn't checked that out,
plug in. We just on Thanksgiving I worked and radio station played the whole. What was that cafe? Whose cafe is that?
Is it like some blues cafe? Is that the radio?
No, it's like a whole 25-minute song.
You're talking about the Guthrie song.
It's
I can't remember it either.
Like that.
It's a 15-minute song. Anyone that's
they
listening
played the whole thing on radio on Thanksgiving.
Anyone listening is screaming at their podcast right now. The title.
Yeah, it's great though.
But yeah, it
great
is a fun.
Song.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. What about you, Matt? What have you been jamming on, and what do you have to plug?
Oh well, jamming on. I have fallen into the single trap we were talking about earlier, where I haven't listened to many albums.
That's fine.
That's one of the things I really love about this podcast is I'm going to try. I've checked out a couple of your episodes because a lot of them I haven't heard the album, so I keep meaning to listen to the album, then come listen to the podcast. But a song I've just absolutely fallen in love with this year, and I found it in the most random way.
Yeah,
is a song called. It's a song by a band called Rit Momney.
Rit Momney.
I have had struggles with faith. We talked about both from Christian bands. I don't know where you are with faith now, but I've definitely had sort of struggles with faith and a departure from it. And this song is about that, and it's called "If the Book Doesn't Sell," and it just meant a lot to me this year. Really, really, really wonderful song. It's weird stylistically. That's the thing. It's so weird stylistically. I don't know who it's for because it's kind of got this similar to this album. It's got that sort of early 2000s indie rock aesthetic, but it also is auto-tuned to hell. And really, I love it. I absolutely love it. But it's called "If the Book Doesn't Sell" by Rit Momney. And I found it in a really weird way, but it just it was on the credits of a TV show. and it made me cry in the 30 seconds of the credits of the TV show.
Oh my god!
And I was just like, okay, I got to find this. I'm like Shazamming before it ends,
yeah. Oh, good thing you had Shazam, man.
Yeah, right. Really great song. And as for plugs, as you mentioned, the Stranded Panda Network is my podcast network. The one song, the podcast that's most applicable to here would be the Matthew Carroll Podcast, which is
I have heard an episode of that. Yeah, you talking more about music.
Yeah, I've been doing these writing projects where I write a song a week and things like that, and I try to do a podcast every time I write one. So I'll do a podcast. I'm trying to do a little more experimental stuff. You ever heard Song Exploder?
No, I haven't.
Oh, no? If you like music podcasting.
Is that a podcast?
It's a podcast called Song Exploder. Oh, man, I can't believe you haven't heard it. It's so good.
I'll have to check it out, yeah.
It is they take a song, like a song you would have heard of, and they deconstruct it and they play its individual tracks and individual parts. What? And the artist gives an interview and talks in depth about why they made all these crazy decisions. It is awesome. So they take one song and they break it out over like a 30-minute interview, and they play like, this is where we added this shaker, and that's what that shaker sounds like by itself. And here's where we did this little thing. And this keyboard line was this guy. And like, it's so good. Anyway, I've tried to start doing more of that.
Definitely going to check that out, man.
It is great. Amazing. It is great. I'll try to send you a certain episode that's really, really good. If you want to check out an episode, actually, it's called...
you said Exploder?
Song Exploder.
Yeah.
Song Exploder. Give me 1 second. I'll tell you the episode everyone should check out.
Yeah. But yeah,
sorry,
having
I'm
access,
in the plugs, but I'm just telling you another thing.
Well, I was gonna say having access to the artists like themselves probably is a huge boon for them because they can get those masters. I mean, it's probably hard to get like the individual tracks if you don't, have access to those things.
Yeah, for sure. And I can't think of the name of the song. Damn it! Sorry, it's so good. There's this one that's just like. Oh yeah, okay, here it is. The Long Winters is the Long Winters, the Commander Thinks Aloud. It's from 2015, but it's January 30th, 2015. The Long Winters, the Commander Thinks Aloud. You can search the Commander Thinks Aloud Song Exploder. It's just a great introduction to the idea of this podcast. You should definitely check it out. Anyway, so with Matthew Carroll Podcast, I've been trying to sort of take that vein and sort of like start doing that more with mine. I've only done it on one episode so far, but I take the track and sort of deconstruct it and sort of like play, here's the demo and here's where I made this decision. And then I added these vocals over the top and then it comes out like this. And that's real fun for me.
Step by step. That's cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping I can do it more in the future. It's sort of time consuming, so it's hard to like create the music and then have time to create a podcast about the music. But it's been fun, and so check out the Matthew Carroll Podcast if you can. My new band is called The Garage. We've got an album coming out in a couple weeks.
Cool.
And if you go to strandedpanda.com and click on the store, you can pre-order the album and the t-shirt, and that's the one where it's the Star Trek album, and there's we made this really badass shirt that has like all these geeky symbols on it that spells out The Garage, and really pumped about that. So,
and I just want to add on to that. You also have on Wednesday nights you do this MCU trivia thing on Twitch that I've really been enjoying, and I think it's just a lot of fun for if you're an MCU fan.
Yeah, and you've been coming on afterwards. So yeah, you guys, twitch.tv/strandedpandatv.
Yeah.
Strandedpanda.com, you can find all these things. But twitch.tv/strandedpandatv, we do trivia. And we're actually giving away a PS5 this season on trivia.
Maybe I'll actually start trying these next ones.
Yeah, 7:30 Central. Come on, and you just answer in the chat, and then it scores your points. It's really fun. So if you're an MCU fan, it's fun.
Definitely fun. And then there's an after party kind of thing that people just kind of hang out.
It's turned into a just alcohol fueled after party now. Like we started it just like, hey, everybody hop on the Zoom call. So like everyone who's been watching the trivia can hop on the Zoom call. And now we just drink too much.
It seems like, it's like when the kids have gone to bed or something.
Yep. We call it After Dark, Stranded Panda After Dark.
Yeah, it's fun.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I've been enjoying going on there, playing some code names and stuff.
Yeah, we play some board games when we can.
Yeah, but as for me, I've been listening to, I'm just going to say Inspector 34 again. They were on the last week's episode, but I absolutely love them. Check out their Spotify and check out their Bandcamp, so you can, buy their new album. And then as for my plugs, I have Travelers, a Dark podcast. We have the whole season out. You can find it on Anchor. And then we have, that's right, my friggin' Patreon. I got a Patreon now. I'm rebranding Revolver Audio into Flyover State Park, which is going to be doing, podcasts and video game streaming type stuff. With Nate had been in previous episode. He's going to be helping me out with that, and Dustin also from a previous episode. But yeah, that's patreon.com/Flyover State Park. And right now, for $5 a month, we have the Album Concept Hour Side B, where we're going to be tackling Sufjan Stevens' 50 States project. So, a lot on the horizon, a lot in the works, and I could use a little support from you all to keep that stuff going. But yeah, that's me for the plugs. Matthew Carroll, dude. Thank you so much for showing up.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I've been wanting to have you on for a long time, so this is a real treat for me.
Yeah, man, we'll do it again. I've got other concept albums I absolutely love.
That's awesome.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
And thank you for tuning in to the AM edition of the album.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you didn't tell me it was like so often at night. I probably could have made that happen. I was just like, I'm figuring it out.
Well, I was just when you said a time, I was like, all right, that's the time. We're making it work.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's
future reference.
Okay.
Future reference. I'm bad in the evening, but after like 10 or 11, when Alyssa goes to sleep, I can normally make something happen.
Super late.
I am bad from like 4 when Alyssa gets off till 10.
Let's do that. Let's do that sometime. Let's do a super late one because we usually.
But I am down to do a super late one.
Yeah, because that works with John because he works. He sometimes like is getting off at like 7:30 or something. So yeah, we could absolutely do a super late one. I'm up late, so
I'm down for that.
I'll keep that in mind though. For next time.
Sweet.
Yeah. But again, it's been a lot of fun. Check out the MCU cast. They just got 500 episodes. And they're going to be talking about all of Phase 4 as it comes out. We've all been waiting. But yeah. That is,
oh man.
I know. We're all just like,
WandaVision, like 3 weeks away.
I can't wait. Oh man.
So excited.
All right, but yeah, this has been the Album Concept Hour. Thank you all for joining us again this week, and we will see you next week.
Off to Gary with weather.
Thanks for listening. The Album Concept Hour is Brad LeBaron, Dave Gallagher, John Aker, and Scott Wesley. Special thanks to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard for the theme music. Please like us on Facebook or friend us on Twitter or MySpace and let us know what concept album you would like to hear on the podcast. See you on Side B. This has been a Revolver Audio production. Executive producer Brad LeBaron. For more podcasts, visit soundcloud.com/revolveraudio, or to support new content, visit ko-fi.com/revolveraudio. Revolver.